James Broughton was my husband, but he was a very unlikely husband. One can't really picture him as a husband. As a poet, yes. As a dreamer, yes. As a creator. But the husband side, that's hard to connect with him because that's connected somehow to convention. And nothing about convention would fit very well with him. He was very much on his own track. I thought, well, things will never be dull. And they weren't. Oh, I've always been an artist. I've always been painting things, conceiving of things, painting things as I see them. I'm not a part of any movement. Meetings with him was around the Playhouse, which was a little theater in San Francisco. And he would appear there. They'd show his movies, and he would talk. And I thought he was very interesting. So I always looked forward to getting to know him better. I remember a long evening at the out in front of the Palace of Fine Arts, talking away into the night. That was a long session. But I can't tell you what we talked about, I'm sorry. Very creative time in Little Theater in the Bay Area. There were lots of them. They were very active. We even had meetings between all the little theaters. We'd get together and talk about stuff. It was quite a movement. I was a costume designer, and I worked part of the time for the Opera House, and the rest of the time with Little Theater. Those were heady times. Being in the workroom, directing a crew on creating things, making costumes. That was a fun time. He was a character, very creative person. I couldn't keep track of where his head was always on to the next thing. Life was never dull. I figured that out when I met him. I thought, well, if I hang out with this guy, things will never be dull. And that proved to be true. Well, he was delightful to live with. You know, he really was. Took the world in his stride. And never seemed uncomfortable in it. He was sort of a master of self-adjustment. Wow. I don't think anybody ever figured that out. I wish we could have. He was an interesting balance between the past and the present. He remembered very much his early days and early creative contacts and stuff, and early family contacts. So there was always a sense of past, present, and future, you know. It was very easy to get along with. People assumed he would be very temperamental, but that was not the case. Of course, he had large doses of Jungian psychology by the time I met him. So he was pretty knowledgeable and self-aware. That's been a big part of my life. Jungian psychology, Jungian ways of thinking. Oh my goodness, look at that. Our wedding announcement. Nuptii. That's quite an announcement, isn't it? I remember people calling up and say, James Broughton and Suzanna Hart have done something. We're not sure what it is. Well, they probably couldn't figure out that word nuptii. But it has a date on it, the 8th of December, 19 something or other. That was a big occasion. I remember we rented a restaurant on Union Street where we lived for a big dinner. That was a lot of fun. Well, there's not much on it. It just says nuptii, James Broughton, Suzanna Hart, 8th of December, and then there's MCM blah, blah, blah. I don't know what that is. It ends in what looks like a 12. 1962. That was a good year. Very creative year. Yes. Oh, it's embarrassing. Wedding song. I guess this is written by James. I don't know. She is as the queen of the south wind, who is said to come out of the east, like the rising dawn, ripening to meet he that is king of the north wind, who reigns in the sun-sleeping west. And where the dominions encounter, warm to his realm, she will bring tributes of the earth and the waters, while he will bestow upon hers a crown of gold, fire, and bright air. Thereafter they may roundly unite their opposing dawning and dusk, on one bed of all noons and nights, like the ancestral sun and the moon, upon the great wheel of the stars. That's quite a wedding song, isn't it? Bind the opposites in warring peace, with sweet wounds, with lively solace, with happy pain, with prickly joy. That's called union. I think that's pretty neat. Well, it's kind of surprising. I mean, I don't remember it well. So part of it is like reading something new. It's pretty flowery. I can't believe I'm a part of that. Follow your own weird. Really, I never heard that. Follow the side of you that is irrational and artistic, rather than reasonable. He would have been very much against reasonable. He was full of surprising things. He just saw the world so much in his own particular view, you know. So he didn't go in for generalities or any sort of conventional thinking. Seemed to be all his own trip. Anything that was boring. My daughter had ways of making him angry. Part of the time they didn't get along very well. Just such different personalities. What made him angry? Anger was not a very strong component of his personality. He pretty much went with the flow. When the song Little Boxes came out, you remember that song? That made him laugh a lot. Little boxes, little boxes. Like all those conventional houses, one after another, just alike. That made him laugh. My most favorite thing about him was his openness to all kinds of ideas and stuff. Everything was okay. That was very nice to be around. Oh, a lot about tolerance, I think. Putting up with things that I didn't like and being lighthearted about it. And taking a lighthearted view of a lot of so-called serious concerns. I wouldn't begin to know. Well, he had a good sense of humor about kids, and you wouldn't expect him to because he's such a bachelor-type person. But he enjoyed them. He got a kick out of them, which was very nice for me. He was a very playful father, as you can imagine. I don't think I am, actually. But I remember the film. I remember his making that film. That was a big number. I remember the bed coming up over the horizon. Quite amazing. It's fun, lighthearted like James, wise. I think he was a wise person. It was a fun film when they were making it. I can still remember Roger Summers sitting on top of the bed playing the saxophone. He was a great guy, good friend of James's. Well, he wasn't interested in making money, so that would not have been a very good criterion for his films. Wouldn't have fit. What a question. In his heart. Yeah. No. No, I didn't want to be a part of that scene. Because it wasn't my scene. Something about taking serious things lightly, or always seeing the light side, the bright side, or always seeing both sides, actually, yeah. Well, he was unique. There was nobody like him. That's hard for me to think about. It's just like he rode off into the sunset with some guy, and that was the end. It was very sad. For me, but not for him. For him, it was fine. That was very irritating. No. He tried on several occasions to communicate with me, but I was not interested. It was painful. So I would have been in favor of continuing the relationship, and he wasn't, so that's a big gap. His involvement with Joel. Well, that all started because James was teaching at San Francisco Art Institute. Well, we were so close, I thought, that anything like that would have been a shock for me, and that was a shock. Very unwelcome incident. From which I've never recovered. Yes, I would never have wanted to part from James. No, I've tried very hard to cut that. It's been an effort. But when I think about him, I just feel terribly sad. And I don't want to feel sad. It was such a one-sided break. Yes. Yes, I think so. I think we did. Both interested and disinterested, which was sort of a good balance, I thought. You know, he enjoyed the kids. But he was not really a fatherly type, you know. He was a fun type. I'm trying to think how my daughter feels about him. I don't know, he just seemed to be in tune with the things that they enjoyed. He was very into that. But he was not a disciplinarian or a teacher for his children. He was more like a playmate. Well, he certainly wrote about it a lot, didn't he? Mother's Day. I don't know that he was obsessed because he had so much psychological help with it. There's a lot of analysis of it, so he understood it rather fully. Thank goodness. Otherwise, it could have been a mess. I think he came to sort of laugh about it eventually. Well, I like Mother's Day. I think that's a terrific film. Well, I just remember him chasing this kid. He and the cameraman, Stan Brackett, chasing this kid all over the neighborhood as he ran around. This is it, and you are it, and I am it, and we are it, and da-da-da-da-da-da. Very zen, I think. He was very zen. Very tolerant of opposites, you know. He got along with opposites. He understood them somehow, and they didn't bother him. That was refreshing to be around. I came from a very judgmental Presbyterian background. Well, I'm not that anymore. That was still very much a part of my background. A lot of judgmental stuff. No, not really. I see that as very separate from James. I think we both liked it that way. Oh, I think in that his capacity to take serious things very lightly, or to appear to take them very lightly, or to see the light side of dark things. He always saw two sides and was not quick to make judgments. He sort of enjoyed contrasts. Got a kick out of contrasts. Yes, he was very open about things. Stories about me and James. I've pretty much blocked out memories of James because it's just painful for me to think about it and to think where I am now with nobody to share things like that with, you know. That was a very special time. It's hard to have had something like that in your life and not have it anymore. It's difficult. But that happens to everybody, so. That's life, I guess, right? Alan Watts was fun. Well, he was just open to everything. Everything new and different. I remember when Little Boxes came out, how enthusiastic he was about that song. He just thought that was great. His openness was really remarkable. Everything was okay with him. He really followed through on his Zen principles that way. I like Alan Watts a lot. I like what he did with that East-West thing. Very close. They were very fond of each other. They got a lot of enjoyment and amusement out of each other. They thought the same things were funny. That was a good relationship. They understood each other very well.
Can you tell us about this photo?
Well, that's a play by Jean Anouilh called Ring Round the Moon. And I played Lady India, who was sort of outrageous. You see her long cigarette holder there? And Patrice, who played by Kenny O'Hara, who's still a friend of mine. That was just a very fun time in the theater. I enjoyed it a lot. This is it, and I am it, and you are it, and so is that, and he is it, and she is it, and it is it, and that is that. Oh, it is this, and it is thus, and it is them, and it is us, and it is now, and here it is, and here we are, so this is it.